everyone. Welcome back to the Topical Juice podcast. And today I have a very, very special guest with me. I have the amazing Vivian Panka. Hi.
Hi.
Can you tell everybody a bit about yourself?
Yes, so I'm Vivian. I'm originally from Holland and I do musical theater and acting, singing, all of that. I'm currently in Heathers and I used to do a show called 9 to 5 before this. And that was my first show in the UK, so I'm fairly new to the UK industry.
Wow, how are you finding the UK? Like how different is it from where you were before?
As a country, it's just so much bigger. Like I live in London, which is definitely bigger than Amsterdam, which is the capital of Holland. Just everything is bigger. I was in tour, which was great because that meant that I got to see the whole country. And I
Yeah.
remember being on a train for hours and hours. Like if you were in Holland and you were on a train for 3 hours, you'd be like in Germany, like you'd be in a different country. So that's the main difference. And then obviously, like because there's more people, there's also more opportunities. But then, you know what I mean? But there's more people, so it's not,
Yeah.
yeah, it's different, but it's great.
That
Yeah.
sounds really cool, actually. I'd love to like visit. Okay. First question
Oh,
is what or who inspired you to become a performer?
oh, I really should have thought about these questions before. Um, so basically, I don't have like a great inspirational story. It's more like super real because I remember very well when I was young. And as I said, I'm from Holland. The industry, like the film industry and the musical theater industry, is just smaller. But I remember watching the Disney Channel because that's
Yeah.
what we had. I think it was called something else, but um, and I watched High School Musical, and this was dubbed back then in Dutch, but that was my first like it wasn't an actual musical, but it was for me, that was the first time I saw people singing, dancing, and acting. And I was like, I want to do that. And I wouldn't say that these actors to this day are my biggest inspiration, but I remember as a child that that was so life-changing for me. And I know I'm not the only one, but yeah, that I think that was why I did everything that I did so far, which is crazy. But yeah, that is it. And then now obviously there's other people who inspire me, but that's where it started.
I think I'm quite similar. I remember growing up on High School Musical as well. It's such a good like film series. My
I know. And I don't think it's good. This is the thing, it's bad.
yeah,
But
it
it's
is quite
like for
bad.
us, like yeah, because I made someone watch it. My brother's girlfriend, who's now my brother's 18, so I think she's around that age as well. She'd never seen it. And I made her watch it and she was like, it's awful. And I was like, yeah, but that's because you're watching it too late. Like you should have watched it when like it's like a nostalgic experience. But you missed out on that. But yeah, it's one of my favorite things.
That's such a good inspiration. My second question for you is, as a person of color, what in the industry would make you feel more safe or more comforted? So, for example, would it be people who would know how to take care of your hair, or having more people that look like you behind the scenes? Or having being part of a more diverse cast? Like, what is it that would make you feel more comfortable in the future?
Yeah, that's so funny because all these examples are things that I have struggled with, even here, where I said like it's a bigger country. There's much less of these problems than where I'm from, where it's a very small and very white world. Um, I was often the only one in the cast who was not white, like not even like black or like no, the only person who wasn't white. And now going to into the UK, yeah, all of these things apply to me because I've been one of two people of color and now it's three, sorry,
Yeah.
in every show that I've done. And it can be kind of isolating. And obviously, there's been times where people didn't really know how to style me or like what
Yeah.
color tights they should give me or these kinds of things. And I think obviously it'd be great if we see more people of color just in every space, because there's space for everyone everywhere. It's not just on stage. But I think it's a lot about education. Like people need to learn how to style someone's hair, and I think changing. But yeah, we're still running into issues sometimes, and I think
Mm.
that it's that where it's problem lies. It's just education and wanting to know more and wanting to, educate yourself and that. And I know a lot of people are doing that 100%, but that would be, I think, yeah, that would be great.
I always find this interesting because I don't know if you agree, but I still feel like a little bit, especially in like the dance world, there seems to be like a default color, especially when you're doing like simple things like buying like equipment like shoes or tights. I feel like there's still a default that we're trying to get away from.
Right,
I wondered if you thought the same thing.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting.
I'm not a dancer. So I don't really buy a lot of dance stuff, but I've seen, and this was like pretty recent, that there was like these ballet shoes and like all these different colors, but that's like fairly new.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, if that it means that's such a big change, then that change should be like everywhere else. The tights problem that I had was more that people, the wardrobe department didn't really know. They were like, "Oh, you have to order your tights,"
oh
and
wow.
sometimes it's just as simple as just maybe go M&S and like you can find my tights. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
got this color that was not at all skin color, and the problem that I had was like I was sad about it. I wasn't like angry. I was just like, but but if you hold these in your hand and you see them, like you shouldn't be giving them to me. You should be like, I'm so sorry.
Mm,
So for one of the shows that I did, the shots, like the pictures, were taken of me in gray tights because they didn't have my tights yet. And then when the tights showed up, they were a different color. It's sad. Like these things don't define you because it happens so often. And I know it's not malice from anyone, but it is annoying because it's always you. Definitely
mm.
like me, or like I was the only black girl in that cast. And I was like, oh, it's always me, you know what I mean? And it just feels a bit, I don't know, but I've never done a show like Dream Girls or like Motown or like Drifters Girl where everyone in the cast, almost everyone in the cast is black in all different shades. And how cool would that be? Because I just don't know how it feels. And I feel like, I don't know if that's true, but I feel like you would run into less problems of
Yeah.
that kind when you're not alone, I think.
Yeah.
But one day, one
One
day
day.
that'll happen for
Do you think
sure.
do you think that because obviously as the years go on, things are improving. Do you think that things are improving quick enough, or do you think that there's room to go faster?
I think there's always room to go faster. I think it's I find it so hard to talk about because I want to be very careful with what I'm saying because like I said, I don't think a lot of stuff comes from malice, but I think
Mm,
everyone as a human being of any color is going to be like your life is about you. So everyone's very egotistical. I am, everyone is. So if you're a white person, like you have to actively change and you have to actively look in the mirror and see the things that you've done that maybe you shouldn't be doing that way in the future. And I always try to explain to people that I have thoughts sometimes about whatever it is that I'm like, oh, that was maybe sexist, or that was maybe
mm.
like something that wasn't completely right to think that. It's not like any of us are perfect, but we do have to sometimes be able to look in the mirror and that will spark change.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of, I've had auditions ask oftentimes one of the only people of color in my cast. I don't want to have a discussion anymore, and I don't want to explain all of these things anymore because I feel like I don't know, it's just so tiring to explain why sometimes things hurt. And I think it would be, I don't know, I just think obviously things can change faster, but I think it's just about all of us just sometimes looking in the mirror and being like, oh, what can I do different? Or like, You know what I mean? And have a
Mm,
conversation and be open about it, walk away from that conversation and not think, oh, I didn't do anything wrong or I did something wrong, but I don't want to think about it, but more, oh, okay, that happened. How can we do it differently in the future? It's not all that personal. It's all that deep. Like it's
yeah,
just about like, I don't know, being open-minded, I think. But yeah,
yeah.
that was a long story for like
No, I do agree, especially with having to constantly like educate other people and like when it's only you, there's almost like a responsibility that you have to be the one to educate people and to explain things to people. I always find that to be one of the hardest things about not being in a diverse place. Oh, no, the internet. Oh, there we go. We're back.
yeah. No.
What does Black History Month mean to you?
Do you know what? I did not grow up with any of this, which is weird because I'm half I'm half black and half Asian. And I had to kind of all of what I know and who I am as a black person came around me, like the black people that I met, and this was later in life. I grew up in like the widest community you could think of, and the only black people I knew were my family, meaning my dad and my three siblings. That's it. So I didn't really grow up with Black History Month. So to me, like all I know is like people get celebrated and like I know that people do a lot of it with in the music industry and stuff, but like for me, like we didn't celebrate it at all. And I know like in America, like I watch a lot of Blackish and that's where like it
Mm,
gets talked about. And for me, like it just kind of passes by. I know that sounds really bad, but my history as a Dutch person is so different in our history and how horrible that is does not even get taught in school. So
mm.
I feel like coming here 2 years ago, that's when I first even heard about it. How bad is that?
I feel like it is important to think about how like different, I guess, culturally being black is even approached because I feel like even here, like growing up in school, there's a whole thing about like the British Empire and what it was like built on that we're not taught about. And it's so interesting because
Right.
where you're a minority and you don't know necessarily everything about your heritage, it's almost like it's being kept from you a little bit.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, I'm cutting out a little bit. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. Yes, no, I agree. I think, but this is the thing that we as people, like from a certain country, also have to realize that being and I think black people often do, but not everyone does. It's like being black is not one thing. It's so broad and so a British black experience is not even one thing. Do you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
then definitely for me being I feel like I'm from six completely different worlds. And it's so different. And I could meet someone black, and that's the only thing we have in common.
Yeah,
It's an important thing because you do live through a lot of the same stuff, and yet your lives are so different, which is interesting to me. But yeah, I 100% agree. I had to figure out for myself who I was, and I went through a time when I was younger, not really wanting to be associated with anything that was stereotypically black, which is still something that I'm working not working on, but working with around like, for example, like the show that I'm doing right now, always like the person that I play always gets cast as someone of color and usually black person.
mm.
Um and what that means to me and how I want to not portray anything that is stereotypical and yet I am very proud to be who I am, but I don't want to fall into any I don't know what the word is, but like I don't I don't want to be what three white men wrote me to be, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. And yeah, I just find it important for everyone to know that being Black is definitely not one thing, and everyone's experience is so, so different. Um, and that's, I think, what makes us stronger. Like that's what makes us special. Um, but yeah, sometimes I feel like that um gets overlooked. But yeah.
I agree. I feel like we're always expected to portray like a certain struggle because I almost feel like sometimes people like to speculate because they're not in our shoes. It's weird. It almost feels like entertainment sometimes for them, which is a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. No, I agree. How is it going with you in school? Like how is, because I my experience was fully hopefully very different because mine was not great. How is that in school? Like do you have a lot of people who look like you or like who are of color? Like how, and teachers, like that's, I didn't have any. Like how is that going? Like how is that?
Okay, so as obviously I'm at Mount View, and as far as drama schools go, I feel like Mount View is definitely one of the more diverse ones. However, um, in a year group of about over 40 people, in like a cohort of about 40 people, um, I think three of us, three or four of us are black or mixed race, and everybody else is either white or like very, very white passing. Um,
Right.
and like especially the boys in my year, every single boy is white. So it's not really that diverse. And the same with the teachers. The teachers racially, we don't really we have some teachers who aren't white, but it it's good here compared to other schools where like other drama schools where like I know that everybody is white, but I think that there's still room for improvement.
Yeah. This is why it's so important, and this is why I don't understand. I do understand where it's coming from because it's rooted in racism, but this is why I find it so important that everyone should be represented in the arts, whatever they may be, because that's the only way that someone who's young may look and think I can one day do that, and I want to go to like a serious, like good drama school. Whereas if you don't see yourself, like how in the world will you ever dream big enough? And some of
Hmm.
for a lot of us, the reason why we do what we do is because there were people, I think when I was growing up too, who looked like me, who did what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And this is why it's so important. And this is important why people of color should, be teachers. But I think there's just not enough of us who believe that we can do it. And I think that's why, yeah, schools are so not diverse, if that makes sense.
There
I don't know if you
definitely,
agree.
yeah, there's definitely something special about having a teacher that looks like you, that's able to kind of, first of all, that's able to champion you. And second of all, who's had some experiences that they may be able to prevent you from having, or at least prepare you for having. I feel like that's why it's so important to be diverse, because then eventually hopefully like the end goal is that those experiences there's like nothing to be warned about, but I feel like until then diversity is so important because I feel like black students and POC students need to be protected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. No, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
My next question is um oh, I feel like it's kind of already answered, but if you don't mind talking about it a bit, what was it like kind of being a minority whilst, I don't know if you went to drama school or did you go, yeah, what was it like being a minority at drama school?
It was, I was used to it because I grew up, like I said, like high school, whatever you call, we call things differently where I'm
Yeah.
from, but like from 4 years old to 12, then from 12 to 17, I was in school and there were some other people of color, but I wasn't just necessarily friends with them. There, we weren't like um drawn to each other per se, not on purpose, I don't think, but more so like there was like a couple of us. Um, so it was normal for me. But then you go into because when you're learning about biology or history, well, history was always a bit awkward when they were talking about slavery, you're the only one. But when you're
Yeah.
learning about maths and all of these things, um, it doesn't really come up as much as when you go into school and we're talking about, okay, what are you gonna be? This was the time where Random Black Girl, that song that Patina Miller sang, was out, and people were like, oh, you should sing that song. And I was like, this is what my life's gonna be. I'm gonna not have as much choice of who I want to play. And I think because our school's 4 years, I think within the 4 years,
Mm.
lots has changed. And I from the beginning was always like, oh, I want to be like if I had to we had to do something called I have to translate everything in my head. It was about like you had to like choose a character and then like analyze the show.
Yeah.
And I just chose like it didn't matter to me. Um, but they always kind of looked weird at me for doing that, and I
Yeah.
don't know, I just that was always the hardest part. And then at a certain point, and this actually spiraled me into a depression, and I swore not to talk about this until I win my Oscar, but I will do so now.
Wow.
There was a time where my teacher decided that it was a good idea to do um for the showcase. They had like a sort of they always did like a medley, but like not just the songs, but like they would play it out. And they chose that year The Color Purple. I tell you, I was not in it. And everyone who did it was white. Um, and I, as a student, as the only one, immediately when they said they were going to do that, said that's a bad idea. I would prefer you not to do that. And they ended up going through with it. And that was, I think, the first time that I was actually like, I don't know, it was my first time where I just couldn't, I felt so different from everyone else. That never happened to me before. And I was like, yeah. And it's on film as well. Like they have it forever. Like, and there's people who did it as well. And I was one of the youngest and I was 21 at the time, or 20, I think 20. So these were adults who chose to do this and teachers who chose to do this, even though I said many times that that was a bad idea. They were wearing sort of gray rags
Oh
and
my
they
God.
were singing songs about how hard it was that they had to work on a field. And I had to sing a song totally out of context differently, like further along in the showcase about shoes.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
and if I look back now, like I would have gone to like higher up, I would have gone to like,
Yeah.
I went to you guys call it a conservatoire, I think you guys call it. So I went to
Yeah.
like a music school. Like if I went higher up, like they would have. But that was the first time that happened, and I genuinely was depressed. But I didn't understand why. But it was because I was so fed. Maybe a bit dramatic, but I was the only one, and no one listened to me. And I think that was the most. I mean, now that I'm thinking back, I'm like, they're stupid. Don't do that. It's stupid. But I just felt so horrible that no one listened to me, even though this was problematic to me. Um, So yeah, that was bad. And everyone I tell this story is like, oh my God. But how old are you?
I'm 20.
So you agree that if you're 20, you know better and you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But they were all like, oh, you get to sing The Color Purple and I never get to do it again. Obviously, you never get to do it again because it's wrong. And you have like, and then the teacher told me, she was like, yeah. Well, actually, this would happen. We were like sitting all together and they were like reading off. And so she was like, The Color Purple. And then she looked around the room and she was like, does anyone have a problem with it? So she was aware that what she was doing is wrong. So I was like, am I the only one who has to lift up my hand in this group of white people? And I have to be like, yeah, I have a problem with it. I did. And then she was like, yeah, I don't really see the problem.
Then why would she ask in the first place? What?
Also, it's not up to you if you see the problem. It's not up to you.
Exactly.
But yeah, that was crazy. And then they did that. And they should not have done that.
I
Um,
think it's so disrespectful because, first of all, it that almost sounds like it's a gimmick to them. Like they want to sing the song from like the one musical that they can't so badly, and then it's something that they can just shake off. Whereas you, who's not even like involved in it, you have to watch them do that. That is so. I'm so sorry that
I hate
happened.
I hated that year. Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And the thing is like it wasn't even like they were singing I'm here. If you want to sing I'm here in a showcase and it's like I'm related to anything, like, oh my gosh, be my guest. I'm not like nitpicking, but don't sing like and we work or whatever the song is called. And I'm like,
Oh my
it was
God.
it was not good. And then she went to me, the teacher, she went and she's like working in Holland as well. Like she's just like living a normal life. And I'm like, you're teaching young minds. Okay. Anyway,
Oh,
she was like, no, there aren't like she wasn't a fan of musical theater because we had like musical theater and like more like what should I call it? Like um performance art kind
yeah.
of stuff. And she was more like that and she thought musical theater was never about anything. And so she went to me and she said, yeah, there's not really a lot of shows with like a lot of depth in it. And then I was like, you've literally only done Parade, which okay. And
Yeah.
then you've done The Color Purple. You think there's no other shows with any depth in it. Like you can do any show. Like most shows are wild. I don't understand.
That is
And this is not too
horrific.
long ago. This was like 2017 or something.
Oh my god, that is horrific. That's so I think the worst part hearing that, the worst part is people then trying to almost like gaslight you out of your feelings. And I feel like that's a big problem when somebody sings a song that's like about your struggle and then you have a problem, rather than listen, I feel like a lot of the time people will always try and dance around it or pretend that you're being dramatic and it makes everything so much worse.
Yeah, the only thing that I think the reason why I felt so bad is because I was alone. And I think that was the hardest thing and there was no one else to defend me in that moment. And for the rest because that was that moment and then they started creating the medley and I would never show up for those rehearsals. Like I didn't want to see it because no one listened to me. I went to three separate teachers and it wasn't like, oh, you're singing one song. No, they did a full medley like in like costume and stuff. It was just distasteful. And yeah, to this day I just don't, there's certain things that are not meant for you to do. And this is always the discussion, even when people are talking about Little Mermaid and all these things. When
Mm,
it's about actual people's history, that's when you don't do it. There's this show in Holland about World War II, which was a big thing in Holland.
mm.
And there were just a lot of white soldiers and a lot of white people. And that show is full of white people, and that's fine. I know that I'm never going to be in that, and it's historically probably correct. And you know what I mean? And I'm not going to cry about it. And for everything else, I'm like, as long as it's not like rooted in like history or like where it's set or whatever, then
Mm.
great. Like, who
Yeah,
cares? But
yeah,
yeah, with those kinds of shows, I'm like, you can stay away from them because there's not many of them.
no,
And if you think that's the only show where there's depth, then you shouldn't be the head of a musical theater course
yeah,
because they really don't know anything about musical theater. But yeah,
no.
I laugh about it now, but at the time it was very, I don't know, it was very, I like it ruined my whole experience of my school time there. But yeah.
Oh my gosh. Um, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That is horrific. That is genuinely awful. But I'm gonna
I
like,
mean, things shape you, I guess.
yeah, I'm gonna try and like end it on a lighter note, because like the Zoom's running out.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But
It is hard, but yeah.
no, as in I've got like a fun question for you now.
Go on.
Um,
Yeah. It's not that deep for me anymore anyway, but yeah, go on, go
good.
on.
Um, what role, like, what's one of your dream roles, or what's a role that you'd love to play in the future?
So everyone always asks me that. I find that so hard. I never really get the roles that I really dream of any well, never really get. I don't really get to audition for them just yet. Um,
Yeah.
but and then I always end up getting roles where I'm like, oh, I'm very grateful that I got them. They were never my dream roles. But if I to think, I really would like to be Eliza in Hamilton. That's one of the
Yeah.
roles I think amazing. Well, and that's where the list ends. It just changes. There, I don't know. There's show. Oh, I would love to do Hadestown. I'd love to
Yes.
do, yeah, I'd love to do that. More like acty roles.
Yeah.
I've now done 9 to 5, which is very fun, but very, yeah, you know what I mean? And then and Heather's is very almost cartoonesque.
Yeah.
And it's also fun, but I'd like to have a bit of a heavier role. So that would
Yeah.
be what it would just be brilliant.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking about your experiences. Genuinely means the world. Thank you so, so much.
Oh my God, thank you. I mean, I'm so excited to hear like all of the other people that you're gonna invite because it's just good to talk about these things. And yeah,
Yeah.
you're doing amazing. It's
Thank you.
great. It's great.
Thank you so much.